Welcome to Lyra Echo Stories, where every story echoes emotions, memories, and hidden truths. Step in and feel the echo of every tale.
I have planned 47 events for my mother: birthday parties, holiday dinners, church picnics, graduation brunches, baby showers, anniversary celebrations, one funeral reception, and 3 Thanksgivings that each required a minimum of 14 side dishes. I have cooked for 12, for 20, for 36. I have ironed tablecloths at midnight and driven 40 minutes to replace a cracked serving bowl at 9 in the morning on a holiday because the replacement had to match the set. I have spent 6 hours on my feet in a kitchen that is not mine, wearing an apron that is not mine, preparing food that would be credited to someone who is not me. Not once have I been asked to sit down. My name is Morgan Calloway. I am 36 years old. I am a freelance event planner in Austin, Texas, and I am very good at my job. My clients pay me. My clients thank me. My clients send referrals and holiday cards, and occasionally a bottle of wine with a note that says something like, "Morgan, the gala was flawless. You made it look effortless." My mother does not send holiday cards. My mother sends lists. The one she handed me on a Saturday morning in April was written on cream-colored paper in her beautiful cursive. Careful loops, perfect spacing, the kind of penmanship they used to teach in schools that no longer exist. 37 items. 2-day timeline. Cook for 30. Clean before and after. Set up the patio by 3. Test the speakers by 4. Chill the wine by 5. Iron the tablecloths. Arrange the centerpieces. Make the pulled pork, the coleslaw, the 3-bean salad, the lemon bars, the sweet tea, the backup sweet tea, in case the first batch runs out, which it always does because my mother invites people who drink sweet tea like it is oxygen. At the bottom, underline twice. Your sister's engagement party must be perfect. I read the list twice, not because I needed to. I have been reading these lists since I was 23 years old. I could write them from memory. I read it twice because I wanted to be sure, one final time, that what I was seeing was real. That after 15 years of planning and cooking and cleaning and setting up and breaking down and driving home alone to eat leftovers standing at my own kitchen counter, my mother had handed me a 37-item task list for my younger sister's engagement party and had not included a single line that said, "And then sit down and enjoy it." I looked up. "Where do I sit?" My mother laughed. Not a mean laugh. That is the thing people do not understand about my mother. She is not cruel in the way that requires effort. She is cruel in the way that requires nothing at all. She laughed the way you laugh when someone asks an obvious question. The way you laugh when a child says something silly. "You don't," she said, and turned back to the counter. "It is not that hard, Morgan." That is what she always says. "It is not that hard. Set up the tables. It is not that hard. Cook for 30. It is not that hard. Spend your Saturday building a party you will watch from behind the kitchen door. It is not that hard." She is right, in a way. None of it is hard. I am a professional event planner. I can coordinate a 200-person corporate retreat with 17 dietary restrictions and a keynote speaker who will not fly commercial. A backyard engagement party for 30 is not hard. What is hard is doing it for free. For 15 years. For people who do not notice you are doing it. My father was sitting at the kitchen table reading the newspaper. He heard everything. He did not look up. His fingers turned the page with the careful steadiness of a man who has been practicing not seeing things for a very long time. I looked at him for 3 seconds. He did not look back. I folded the list, put it in my back pocket, and I smiled. Not the kind of smile that means happiness. The kind that means the math is done and the answer is final. "I'll go get the supplies," I said. I drove back to my apartment on South Lamar. 1 bedroom, clean in the way that makes some people uncomfortable. Label maker on the shelf. Organizer bins sorted by color. A kitchen table with 2 chairs, one of which has never been sat in by another person. Everything in its place. Everything planned for. I sat down at that table and opened my notebook. It is a small thing. Leather-bound, always in my left hand or my back pocket. Inside are 47 events, logged by date. Guest counts, vendor contacts, costs, hours spent. I have never shown this notebook to anyone. It was not evidence. It was just how I keep track of things, because I am the kind of person who keeps track of things. Other people call this organized. I call it the only way I know how to exist. I turned to the last page. The page I had written on 6 days earlier, on a Tuesday night after checking the flight status one final time. Saturday. Flight 7:45 p.m. Austin to San Diego. I closed the notebook, set it on the table, looked at the label maker on the shelf, the bins in the closet, the single coffee mug drying next to the sink. I had been planning my mother's parties for 15 years. It took me 6 weeks to plan leaving them. But before I tell you about Saturday, I need to tell you about a certificate. A 5th grade certificate of achievement that has been sitting at the bottom of a shoebox in my closet for 24 years, still folded the same way I folded it in the parking lot of Westlake Elementary when I was 12 years old, standing next to my mother's car, holding the only award I had ever won, while she explained that she had to pick up Kayla's recital dress and could not make it inside. That certificate is the reason I am on this plane right now. And it is the reason my mother's house is dark tonight, with 30 guests standing in a driveway, looking at a front door that nobody is answering. The certificate was printed on that heavy cardstock they used for formal things at Westlake Elementary. Blue border, gold seal, certificate of achievement, awarded to Morgan Elaine Calloway, 5th grade, for outstanding academic performance. My name spelled correctly, which felt like a miracle because my 3rd grade teacher had spent an entire year calling me Megan. I won it on a Thursday afternoon in May, 12 years old. I walked across the stage in the gymnasium and Principal Hewitt shook my hand and said, "Excellent work, Morgan," and I looked out at the rows of metal folding chairs to find my mother's face. Row 2, 3rd seat from the aisle. That is where she said she would be. The seat was empty. Kayla was there, 7 years old, sitting next to my Aunt Donna, kicking her legs because her feet did not reach the floor. She waved at me. I waved back, but I was not looking at Kayla. I was looking at the empty chair next to her, and at the purse that was not hanging on it, and at the coat that was not draped across the back. After the ceremony, I walked to the parking lot. My mother was standing next to the Suburban with 2 shopping bags from Dillard's, one of them pink, the other wrapped in tissue paper. "Sorry, honey. I had to pick up Kayla's recital dress. They called and said they were closing early today." "How was it?" I held up the certificate. "That's nice, sweetie." She barely looked. "Hop in. We need to get Kayla ready for dress rehearsal." I folded the certificate into thirds and put it in my backpack, between my math binder and a granola bar wrapper. When I got home, I put it in a shoebox on the top shelf of my closet. I did not hang it on the wall. I did not show it to my father. I did not mention it again. Nobody asked. 24 years later, that certificate is still folded the same way, still in the same shoebox. I know because I checked on Thursday night, 2 days before my mother handed me the list. I opened the box and looked at it and thought about putting it in my suitcase. Then I did. I could not have told you why at the time, but I think I know now. When I was 23, I moved back to Austin after college. I had a degree in hospitality management, a used Honda Civic, and a plan to build an event planning business from scratch. I moved into a studio apartment on Riverside and took every gig I could find: corporate mixers, wedding showers, a retirement party for a dentist who wanted a Moroccan theme on a Denny's budget. I was hungry and I was organized and I was good. That fall, my mother called. "Morgan, Thanksgiving is at the house this year. Can you help me with the menu?" Help. That is the word she used. Help. Not plan, not cater. Not spend 6 hours on your feet doing the work of 3 people while I stand at the front door and welcome guests, as if I had been cooking since dawn. Help. I said yes. I drove to Cedar Park the Tuesday before Thanksgiving and spent 2 days in her kitchen. I made the turkey. I made the stuffing, the gravy, the cranberry sauce from scratch, the green bean casserole, the mashed potatoes, the corn pudding, the rolls, the 2 pies. My mother made the sweet tea. She poured it from a pitcher I had prepared into glasses I had washed. 14 people sat around the table. My mother stood at the head and said, "I have been cooking all day. I hope you enjoy it." Everyone applauded. Someone said, "Heather, you have outdone yourself." I was standing in the kitchen doorway, holding a dish towel, a smear of flour on my wrist. No one looked at me. Not once. That was the first event. The first of 47. I told myself it was fine. I told myself this is what families do. You help because you love them, and you do not keep score because love is not a ledger. I told myself the credit did not matter, the food mattered, the gathering mattered, making people happy mattered. What I did not tell myself, because I did not have the language for it yet, was this. The only time my mother called me was when she needed something planned. The only time I was invited to the house was when there was work to do. And the only version of me that existed in my family was the version holding a dish towel. Kayla was 15 that Thanksgiving. She walked through the kitchen on her way to the backyard, earbuds in, phone in hand. She stopped and looked at me. I was elbow deep in a roasting pan. "Why are you always in the kitchen?" she asked. "Not mean, just curious. The way you ask about weather." "Because someone has to be," I said. "Oh," she said, and kept walking. She never asked again, and I never stopped being in the kitchen. The years stacked up the way years do when you are not paying attention. Every holiday, every birthday, every graduation brunch and church picnic and baby shower, Heather Calloway throws the best parties. That is what the neighborhood said. That is what the church ladies whispered to each other over coffee. That is what my mother believed about herself, fully and completely, the way you believe the sun rises in the east. She believed it because I made it true. And I made it true because I did not know any other way to belong. 5 years ago, Thanksgiving again. I was washing dishes at 11 at night. The house was quiet. Everyone had gone to bed, full and satisfied. And the kitchen was mine. The way kitchens are always mine at the end of things. My father came downstairs. He was wearing a flannel robe and his reading glasses were pushed up on his forehead. He stopped in the doorway. I looked up from the sink, hands in soapy water. He opened his mouth, then closed it. "Night, kid." "Night, Dad." He went back upstairs. I finished the dishes alone, dried my hands on the towel, drove home in the dark. That was the closest my father ever came to saying something. I did not know it at the time, but I know it now because I have replayed that moment more times than I can count, and every time I try to imagine what he almost said. I have 47 events in my notebook. I have one almost sentence from my father, and I am not sure which one weighs more. Courtney Pham is the only person who has ever washed a dish in my mother's kitchen besides me. She came to Thanksgiving 8 years ago. I had invited her because she was between apartments and her family was in Orange County, and I thought it would be nice to have someone there who knew me from before. Before the lists. Before the 47 events. Before I became the woman in the apron. Courtney sat at the table with everyone else. She ate the food I had made. She laughed at my uncle's stories and complimented the cranberry sauce and did all the things guests do at a Thanksgiving dinner. But when the plates were cleared and my mother said, "Well, that was wonderful," and everyone drifted to the living room, Courtney did something no one in my family had done in 10 years of holiday meals. She followed me into the kitchen. She picked up a dish towel. She did not ask permission or announce it or make a production of it. She just stood next to me at the sink and started drying. We washed dishes for 40 minutes. My mother walked through the kitchen twice during that time, once to get a bottle of wine and once to check her phone. She did not acknowledge that 2 people were washing her dishes. She did not say thank you. She did not offer to take a turn. She walked through us like furniture. Courtney did not say anything while we washed. She waited until we were in my car, driving back to Austin, the highway dark, and the dashboard lights green on her face. "Why do you let them do this?" I kept my eyes on the road. "Do what?" "Morgan. You cooked for 14 people. You served, you cleaned. You spent 6 hours in that kitchen, and your mother told the table she had been cooking all day. And then you washed the dishes. It's just family," I said. Courtney was quiet for a long time. Then she said 5 words that I have been carrying with me for 8 years. "The way you carry a stone in your pocket that you keep meaning to throw away but never do. That's not family, that's a shift." I did not speak to Courtney for 3 months after that night. I told myself she had overstepped. I told myself she did not understand the dynamic. I told myself that she came from a different kind of family, a family where people talked about things directly instead of communicating through casserole dishes and seating arrangements. She did not understand that in my family, love looked like labor, and if you stopped laboring, you stopped being loved. But the real reason I stopped talking to Courtney was simpler and worse. She was right, and I was not ready to know that. 3 months later, I called her. She picked up on the second ring and said, "Hey, stranger," and we talked for 2 hours about everything except Thanksgiving. We never mentioned the dishes or the shift comment or the 3 months of silence. That is how Courtney and I work. She says the true thing. I go away for a while. I come back. She does not punish me for leaving, and I do not punish her for being honest. It is, now that I think about it, the only relationship in my life that operates on fair terms. But something changed after that Thanksgiving. I started writing things down. Not just vendor contacts and guest counts. I started writing the hours. Tuesday, 4 hours prep. Wednesday, 6 hours cooking. Thursday, 2 hours cleanup. Saturday, drove 40 minutes to replace serving bowl. I did not have a plan for these numbers. I did not know I was building a record. I just needed to see them on paper, the way you need to see a bruise to believe it is real. 2 years ago, I was seeing someone. His name was Owen, and he was a high school history teacher. And he was the kind of man who noticed things. He noticed that I ironed tablecloths for my mother's Easter brunch, but ate cereal standing up in my own kitchen. He noticed that my phone rang every time a family event was approaching and went silent in between. He noticed that I had 47 events in my notebook and not a single one with my own name on it. We lasted 3 years. The end came on a Sunday evening in his apartment, the light through the blinds making stripes on the hardwood floor. He was sitting on the edge of the bed, and I was standing in the doorway, the way I always stand in doorways, half in and half out, ready to leave or stay depending on what is needed. "You plan everything except your own life, Morgan," he said. "You have 47 events in that notebook and not one of them is for you." "That's not fair," I said. "You're right," he said. "None of this is fair. That's the point." I went home. I sat at my kitchen table with the 2 chairs, one empty. I opened my notebook and counted. 47. He was right. Courtney was right. Everyone was right except me, and I had known it the entire time, and knowing had changed nothing. The lie I told myself was this: if I stop, they will stop calling, and if they stop calling, I will be alone. Not alone the way I am alone now, in a quiet apartment with a label maker and a single coffee mug. Alone the way you are alone, when the people who are supposed to love you confirm that they only needed you for what you could do. I was not ready to test that theory. Not then, but 6 months ago, something shifted. Not a big thing. Not a revelation or a breakdown or a moment of clarity. Just a small, persistent question that started arriving every morning while I brushed my teeth, and every night while I set my alarm, and every Saturday while I drove to Cedar Park with grocery bags in the back seat. The question was this: what if you plan something for yourself? I did not answer it for a long time. I am an event planner. I know that the best events take weeks of preparation. And leaving your family, I was beginning to understand, is the biggest event of all. 6 weeks before my mother handed me the list, she called me on a Tuesday evening. I was at my desk reviewing a vendor contract for a tech company's product launch, and when her name appeared on my phone, I paused, because Heather Calloway does not call on Tuesdays unless something has happened or something is about to. "Morgan, guess what?" Logan proposed. Logan Ashby. Kayla's boyfriend of 2 years. I had met him once, at a Sunday dinner where I made pot roast, and he complimented the seasoning and shook my hand and called me ma'am, which made me feel ancient and oddly respected at the same time. "That's wonderful, Mom. Tell Kayla congratulations. We have so much to plan. I'm thinking the backyard, 30 people, string lights, the nice tables, maybe that caterer you used for the Henderson party. Oh, and your pulled pork. People always ask about your pulled pork. Your pulled pork? Not the pulled pork. Not that great pulled pork recipe. Your pulled pork. My hands, my hours. My recipe that I developed over 3 years of adjusting the rub and the smoke time and the vinegar ratio until it was exactly right. My pulled pork that my mother has served at 9 separate events and described to guests every single time as a family recipe. It is a family recipe. I am the family. I am the recipe. Sure, Mom. Send me the guest count when you have it. I hung up, set the phone down, looked at the vendor contract on my screen, the one where my client would pay me $4,800 for coordinating a 3-hour event. Then I opened my laptop, created a new folder on the desktop, named it Exit. I did not know, sitting there, exactly what that folder would contain. But I knew it would contain something. The question from the toothbrush mornings had found its answer. What if you plan something for yourself? This is what you plan. Over the next 4 weeks, I worked the way I work. Methodical, thorough. I was not emotional about it. I was professional. This was a project, and I treated it like one. First, I audited every vendor relationship connected to my family. I opened my notebook and went through 15 years of entries. Caterer, Leyland & Sons, account under Morgan Calloway, Visa ending 4471. Table and chair rental. Hill Country Party Supply. Same card. Florist. Bluebird Floral on South Congress. Same card. DJ. A guy named Terrence who runs a mobile setup out of Pflugerville. Same card. Every single vendor. Every single contract. Every single credit card charge. All mine. My mother had never paid a deposit, signed an agreement, or entered a card number. She had never asked how much anything cost. She had never offered to reimburse me. In 15 years and 47 events, Heather Calloway's financial contribution to the parties she was famous for was $0. I spent an evening calculating the total. It was not a small number. I will not say it here because the number is not the point. The point is that I looked at it on my screen and understood, for the first time with the clarity of arithmetic, that I had been running a catering and event planning business for a client who did not pay and did not know she was a client. I researched cancellation policies next. Each vendor, each contract, each refund window. I wrote them in my notebook in the small, precise handwriting that my clients say makes them feel like their events are in good hands. Caterer. 50% refund if canceled under 48 hours. Rental company. Same. Day pickup available. Small cancellation fee. Florist. 70% refund with 24 hours notice. DJ. Full refund if notice given more than 24 hours before the event. I called Courtney on a Wednesday night. I'm making a spreadsheet, I said. Of what? Of everything they owe me. She was quiet for 3 seconds. I counted. 3 seconds is a long time for Courtney Pham, who once argued with a parking enforcement officer for 11 minutes without taking a breath. Tell me what you need, she said. A guest room. For a Saturday night. Maybe longer. Done. Anything else? Wine. Already chilled. I booked the flight on a Tuesday. Austin to San Diego, Saturday departure, 7:45 in the evening, one way. I looked at the return flight options and closed the tab. I was not ready to decide when I was coming back. Or if. Heather called 2 days later with the guest list. 30 names. I recognized most of them. Church friends, neighbors, a few of my father's golf buddies, Aunt Donna, Uncle Ray. People who had eaten my food at dozens of events and complimented my mother every time. I booked everything. Caterer. 4. Course menu, appetizers through dessert, for 30. Rental company, 30 chairs, 4 rectangular tables, white linens, glass centerpieces. Florist. Table arrangements plus a standing arrangement for the patio entrance. DJ. 4-hour playlist. Speakers, set up by 5. All under my name, all on my card. All of it, every tablecloth and every lemon bar and every string of fairy lights, built on a foundation that I could remove with 4 phone calls. My mother did not ask how much it cost. She asked if the centerpieces could be white and gold. I said yes. 2 days before the party, a Thursday, I drove to Cedar Park to prep the food. My mother was at a church committee meeting. My father was in the garage. Kayla was at Logan's apartment. The house was empty and mine in the way it is always mine when there is work to do. I spent 4 hours in the kitchen, pulled pork in the slow cooker, coleslaw in the fridge, lemon bar batter ready for Friday morning bake, 3-bean salad marinating, sweet tea brewed, both batches, in the big glass pitchers that my mother received as a wedding gift 36 years ago and has never once filled herself. At 11 that night, I stopped. The kitchen was clean. The counters gleamed. The prep containers were labeled and stacked in the refrigerator in the order they would be needed. Everything was ready. Everything was perfect. It was the kind of kitchen that would make a client weep with gratitude. I was standing at the island, wiping my hands on a towel, and I caught my reflection in the glass door of the oven. The light above the stove was the only one on in the house, and it turned the oven glass into a dark mirror. I was wearing my mother's apron, the blue one with the white trim that has hung on the hook by the pantry for as long as I can remember. I did not bring my own apron. I never do. I always wear hers, because hers is already there, the way I am always already there, in her kitchen, doing her work, wearing her uniform. I looked at the reflection and I did not see Morgan. I saw my mother's kitchen, my mother's apron, my mother's party. I saw a woman who had been standing in this exact spot under this exact light for 15 years, and nobody had ever walked in and said, "Sit down, I'll finish." I untied the apron, folded it the way I fold everything, in thirds, edges aligned, placed it on the counter, washed my hands, turned off the light, locked the door. I drove home in the dark. The prep food was in my mother's refrigerator. By Saturday morning, it would be in mine. But she did not know that yet. And standing in her kitchen, folding her apron for the last time, I thought of something Courtney had said to me 8 years ago in a car on a dark highway. That is not family. That is a shift. And I had just clocked out. Saturday morning arrived the way I knew it would. I drove to Cedar Park at 8. My mother was already in the kitchen, coffee in hand, cream-colored paper on the counter. She had added 3 items since Thursday, 40 now, 40 tasks on a list for a party I would not attend. Written in handwriting so beautiful, it almost made you forget what the words were asking. I have already told you about the list. I have told you about the question I asked and the answer she gave, and the way my father turned the page of his newspaper without looking up. I do not need to tell you those things again. What I need to tell you is what happened next. I picked up the list, read it, folded it, smiled. And then I said, I need to run to the store for a few things, and I should take the food home to finish prepping. My oven is better for the lemon bars. My mother did not question this. She has never questioned my process because my process has never failed her. That is the thing about being reliable for 15 years. People stopped checking. I loaded 3 coolers into my car, pulled pork in the first one, coleslaw and 3-bean salad in the second, lemon bar batter, sweet tea pitchers, and backup ingredients in the third. Everything I had prepped on Thursday night. Everything that would have fed 30 people. I loaded it into my Honda while my mother sat at the kitchen table scrolling through a Pinterest board of centerpiece ideas she would never build herself. Back by 2, I said. Don't forget the ice, she said without looking up. I drove to my apartment, carried the coolers inside, set them on the kitchen floor next to my suitcase, which had been packed since Thursday and was sitting by the front door like a patient dog. Then I sat down at my kitchen table, opened my notebook, turned to the exit page. 4 phone calls. That is all it would take. 4 phone calls to disassemble a party that had taken 2 weeks to build. I had coordinated a 200-person gala in a converted warehouse with a rain contingency and a vegan dessert station that required its own power supply. 4 phone calls was nothing. I picked up the phone. Call 1, Leyland and Sons Catering. Good morning, this is Morgan Calloway. I need to cancel the order for this evening. Account number 4471. Yes, the 30-person dinner. Full cancellation. No reschedule. The woman on the line asked if there was a problem with the menu. I said no. The menu was perfect. The event was canceled. She processed the refund, 50% back to my card, and wished me a good weekend. Professional. Clean. 30 seconds. Call 2. Hill Country Party Supply. I need to arrange an early pickup for the tables and chairs at 1422 Birchwood Lane, Cedar Park. Today, before 4 if possible. The dispatcher said they could send a truck by 3:30. I confirmed. 30 chairs, 4 tables, white linens, glass centerpieces. All of it, picked up and loaded onto a truck while my mother was at Salon West getting her hair done for the party. She had a 2 o'clock appointment. She would not be home. I knew her schedule because I have always known her schedule. It is part of the job. Call 3. Bluebird Floral. Brief. Professional. The florist asked if I wanted to reschedule for another date. I said no thank you. She said she was sorry to hear that. I said I was not. Call 4. Terrence, the DJ. He picked up on the 3rd ring, casual, the sound of a lawnmower in the background. Terrence, it's Morgan Calloway. I need to cancel tonight. Oh no. Is it a scheduling conflict? I looked at my suitcase by the door, at the coolers on the floor, at the notebook in my hand with 15 years of events logged in careful handwriting and one final page that said exit. You could say that, I said. He processed the refund. Full amount. I thanked him and hung up. I sat at the table for a moment. 4 calls, 11 minutes total. 15 years of parties, and it took 11 minutes to make sure the next one would not happen. I picked up a pen and drew a line through each item on the exit page. Caterer. Cancelled. Rental. Pickup confirmed. Florist. Cancelled. DJ. Cancelled. Flight. Confirmed. Suitcase. Packed. Courtney. Expecting me. 7 items. 7 lines. Done. The coolers sat on my kitchen floor. 3 coolers of food that would have fed 30 people. I opened the first one and looked at the pulled pork. 8 hours of slow cooking. My recipe, my rub, my patience. I thought about eating some. Then I thought about what it would mean to sit in my apartment eating pulled pork, meant for my sister's engagement party, alone at a table with 2 chairs and 1 empty seat. I closed the cooler, put all 3 in the refrigerator. I would figure out the food later. Courtney would help. Courtney always helps. It was 12:30. My flight was at 7:45. 7 hours and 15 minutes. In that window, the following things would happen. The rental truck would arrive at my mother's house at 3:30 and remove every table, every chair, every linen, and every centerpiece from the backyard. My mother would return from the salon at 5, hair perfect, nails done, expecting to walk into a house that was ready for a party. Instead, she would walk into a house with an empty patio, an empty kitchen, and an apron folded on the counter. I knew this. I had planned it. That is what I do. I plan things. I build systems and I track timelines and I anticipate problems before they arrive. For 15 years, I had used this skill to make my mother's life beautiful. Today, I was using it to make my own life possible. I should tell you that I felt guilty. A good daughter would feel guilty. A good event planner would feel the loss of a canceled project, the way a surgeon might flinch at an abandoned operation. And there was guilt, somewhere in the machinery, a small grinding sound like a gear that does not quite fit. But under the guilt was something else, something I had not felt in a very long time, so long that I did not recognize it at first. It was not happiness, it was not relief. It was the feeling of sitting in a quiet room after years of noise and realizing that the quiet is not empty. It is full of all the things you could not hear while you were busy cooking for 30 people who would never ask you to sit down. I zipped my suitcase, checked my phone. No messages from my mother. She was at the salon, telling the stylist about the party, about the decorations, about the food she had been preparing. By 3:30, the rental truck would be at her house. By 5, she would know. By 7:45, I would be gone. I had one more thing to do before I left. I opened my closet, reached to the top shelf, and pulled down the shoebox. Inside, folded in thirds, was the certificate of achievement from 5th grade. I looked at it for a moment. Then I put it in my suitcase, between a sweater and a pair of shoes, where it would be safe. I had carried it for 24 years without displaying it. It was time to find it a shelf. I locked my apartment at 5:15, suitcase in my right hand, notebook in my left, closed, the exit page finished, 3 coolers of food in the refrigerator that I would deal with later, the label maker on the shelf, the organizer bins in the closet, the 2-chair table clean and empty. I pulled the door shut and did not look back. That is not a metaphor. I simply did not look back because there was nothing to see. A clean apartment with labeled bins and a single coffee mug drying by the sink. That was the sum of my personal life at 36 years old. Everything else I had built belonged to someone else's kitchen. The drive to Austin Bergstrom took 22 minutes. I know because I timed it the week before, on a Saturday at the same hour, to confirm there would be no traffic surprises. I am the kind of person who does a test drive to the airport before a trip. Courtney says this makes me clinically predictable. She is not wrong. I parked in the long-term garage, level 3, spot 47. I noticed the number and almost laughed. Almost. The universe has a sense of humor that I do not always appreciate. My phone rang as I was walking through the terminal. I looked at the screen. Mom, it was 5:38. She would have been home from the salon for about 30 minutes by now. Enough time to walk through the front door, set her purse on the counter, check her hair in the hallway mirror, and then walk to the patio to admire the setup. There was no setup. The rental company had come at 3:30, just as I had arranged. 30 chairs, 4 rectangular tables, white linens, glass centerpieces, loaded onto a flatbed truck and driven away. The patio was empty concrete. The string lights were still hanging but unplugged, and no one in that house knew how to connect them to the extension cord that I had routed along the fence line 3 Christmases ago. My phone kept ringing. I pressed the side button and sent it to voicemail. Then I turned the corner toward Terminal 2 and called Courtney. She picked up before the first ring finished. "You're at the airport," she said. "Not a question. Gate B7. Boarding at 7:20. How do you feel?" I thought about the question. I thought about it the way I think about most questions, which is, methodically, from several angles, looking for the most accurate answer rather than the fastest one. "I don't know yet," I said. "I think the feelings are on delay." That tracks. I could hear her smiling through the phone. INTJ emotional processing. Estimated arrival. Somewhere over New Mexico. Courtney. Yeah? You were right. 8 years ago. In the car. You were right. She was quiet. Not Courtney quiet, which usually lasts about 1.5 seconds. Really quiet. The kind of quiet that means someone is choosing between 6 things to say and settling on the one that matters most. I know, she said. Now get on the plane. The wine is chilled, and I ordered Thai. You ordered Thai. Green curry. Extra basil. Because you have been cooking for other people for 15 years and tonight someone is cooking for you, even if that someone is a restaurant on Garnet Avenue, I laughed. A real one. Small, surprised, the kind that catches in your chest before it reaches your mouth. I had not laughed like that in a while. Thank you, I said. Do not thank me. Thanks Southwest Airlines for having a 7:45 departure. I will see you at 10. Terminal 2. Curbside pickup. I will be the one honking. She hung up. I stood in the terminal holding my phone, watching families and business travelers and couples move around me like water around a stone. A woman my age was sitting at the gate across from mine, reading a paperback, a carry-on at her feet, a coffee in her hand. She looked completely ordinary. She looked like she was going somewhere because she wanted to, not because she had to leave. I wondered if she had ever cooked for 30 people who did not save her a seat. My phone buzzed. Mom again. I looked at the notification. Missed call. Then a text. Morgan, where are you? The tables are gone. Did you call the rental company? Call me. I read the text twice. The same way I had read the list that morning. Then I put my phone in my jacket pocket and did not take it out again. At 7:15, they called boarding group B. I stood in line with my suitcase and my notebook and my certificate folded in thirds between a sweater and a pair of shoes. The gate agent scanned my boarding pass and said, "Have a nice flight." I said thank you and walked down the jetway, and the carpet was that industrial blue-gray they use in every airport in America, and my shoes made no sound on it at all. Seat 14C window. I buckled my seatbelt and looked out at the tarmac. Ground crew in orange vests. A baggage cart driving in a slow circle. The wing of the plane catching the last light of a Texas evening, golden and flat, the way light looks when it has nowhere left to go. The plane pushed back. Taxied. Accelerated. And then Austin was below me, shrinking, the highways becoming threads, and the buildings becoming dots, and somewhere in Cedar Park a woman with freshly styled hair was standing on an empty patio making phone calls that no one was answering. At 35,000 feet, the emotions arrived. They did not announce themselves. They did not build gradually or knock politely. They came the way weather comes to flat country, all at once and from every direction. My throat tightened. My eyes burned. And then I was crying in seat 14C, window side, silently, the way you cry when you have been holding something for so long that releasing it feels less like grief and more like setting down a weight you forgot you were carrying. I was not crying because I was sad. I was not crying because I missed my mother, or regretted what I had done, or worried about the 30 people arriving at a dark house. I was crying because, for the first time in 15 years, I was going somewhere that had nothing to do with a list. Nobody was expecting me to cook. Nobody was expecting me to set up or break down or wash dishes at 11 at night while the house slept around me. Courtney was expecting me to arrive. Just arrive. Just be there. Just sit down. The crying lasted about 4 minutes. Then it stopped, the way a faucet stops when you turn the handle all the way. I wiped my face with my sleeve. I did not have tissues because I had not packed any, because I am the kind of person who packs a passport for a domestic flight but does not think to bring tissues for the possibility that she might feel something. I leaned my head against the window. Below me, Texas unrolled into the dark, and somewhere in that dark, my mother was learning a lesson I had spent 15 years trying not to teach her. The lesson was simple. Everything she thought was hers had been mine. The parties, the food, the reputation, the centerpieces and the lemon bars and the sweet tea and the compliments from church ladies and the Pinterest boards she scrolled through but never built. All of it, every beautiful thing in Heather Calloway's beautiful life, had been assembled by a woman she did not think to seat at the table. My phone sat in my pocket, buzzing against my hip like a small trapped animal. I did not take it out. I did not need to. I knew what was on it. I knew the progression. Confusion, then anger, then more anger, then something that might eventually sound like need. I knew because I had planned for it. That is what I do. I plan things. But tonight, for the first time, I had planned nothing for tomorrow. And somewhere over West Texas, that felt like the most important thing I had ever done. I was not there for what happened next. I was somewhere over New Mexico, drinking ginger ale at 35,000 feet, watching the last light die across a desert I had never visited and probably never would. But I know what happened. I know because Logan Ashby told Courtney, and Courtney told me, and Logan is the kind of man who remembers details the way I remember details, which is all of them, in order, without embellishment. He is an accountant. Accountants do not exaggerate, they report. This is what he reported. Heather Calloway returned from Salon West at 10 minutes past 5. Her hair was set in soft waves. Her nails were a shade called ballet slipper, which is a pink, so pale it is almost an apology for being pink at all. She was wearing a new blouse she had bought for the occasion and earrings she had borrowed from Aunt Donna, and she walked through her front door expecting to find a house that was ready for the most important party of her youngest daughter's life. The kitchen was dark. The counters were empty. The refrigerator, when she opened it, contained a half-empty bottle of ranch dressing, a jar of pickles, and a stick of butter still in its wrapper. She walked to the patio. The string lights were hanging but dark. She reached for the switch and pressed it. Nothing happened, because the switch was connected to an extension cord that ran along the bottom of the fence, and the extension cord had been unplugged when the rental company removed the tables, and Heather Calloway had never once in her life plugged in those lights. That had always been Morgan's job. Everything had always been Morgan's job. The patio was concrete. Flat. Empty. No tables. No chairs. No linens. No centerpieces. No flower arrangements. No speakers. Nothing except a single forgotten citronella candle sitting on the ledge near the back door, left over from a barbecue in July that Morgan had also planned. Heather called Morgan. The phone rang 4 times and went to voicemail. She called again. Voicemail? She called Brian. Brian was in the garage, which is where Brian goes when he does not want to be part of something. He came inside, looked at the patio, looked at the kitchen, looked at Heather. "Where is everything?" Heather said. Brian opened the refrigerator, closed it, opened the pantry, closed it, looked at the empty counters where, 24 hours earlier, there had been containers of food labeled in Morgan's handwriting, stacked in the order they would be needed. "I think Morgan took it," he said. "Took what?" "Everything." Heather called the caterer. She did not know the caterer's name. She scrolled through her own phone looking for a number she had never dialed, because Morgan had always made the call. She found nothing. She called Morgan again. Voicemail. She called Kayla and told her to come early, that there was a situation, that Morgan had done something. She was not sure what, but something was wrong. Kayla arrived at 7:30. Logan was driving. Kayla was wearing a white dress with small gold buttons down the front, the kind of dress you buy when you expect to be photographed and congratulated and handed glasses of champagne by people who love you. She had curled her hair. She had spent 40 minutes on her makeup. She walked into the house and stopped. "Mom, where is everything?" Heather was standing in the kitchen, phone in one hand, the other hand flat on the counter the way you brace yourself when the ground is moving. She had been crying, not dramatically, quietly, the kind of crying that happens when a woman who has built her entire identity on being in control discovers that the thing she was controlling was never hers. "Morgan left," Heather said. "She canceled everything. The caterer, the rentals, the flowers, all of it. It was all under her name, her credit card. She canceled it." Kayla looked at the empty patio, at the dark string lights, at the refrigerator door hanging open with nothing behind it. She canceled the food, too? She took the food. This morning. She said she needed to finish prepping at home. She took it, and she left. Logan stood in the hallway, holding a bottle of wine they had brought as a gift, watching 2 women he had known for less than 2 years discover something they should have known for 15. He did not say anything. He is an accountant. He was calculating. At 8 o'clock, the guests began arriving. First was Mrs. Nguyen from across the street, carrying a casserole dish and wearing a floral blouse she had ironed for the occasion. She walked up the driveway and noticed that the house was darker than expected. The porch light was on, but the backyard was black. She rang the doorbell. Heather opened the door. Her mascara had migrated. Her new blouse had a wrinkle across the front where she had been leaning against the counter. Mrs. Nguyen looked past her into the dark house. "Heather, is it a surprise party?" Heather's mouth opened, closed, opened again. It's certainly a surprise, she said. More guests arrived, couples in nice clothes, bottles of wine, congratulations cards with checks inside. They stood in the living room, which had no additional seating because the 30 chairs were in a warehouse in Round Rock. They held their wine bottles and looked at each other and spoke in low voices. The way people speak at events that are clearly not going as planned, but nobody wants to be the first to say so. Heather tried. She went to the kitchen and opened cabinets looking for something to serve. She found crackers. She found a bag of pretzels from a brand she did not recognize, left over from some previous event Morgan had organized. She put them in a bowl and carried them to the living room. 30 adults, dressed for an engagement party, eating stale pretzels from a mixing bowl. Uncle Ray asked where the pulled pork was. Aunt Donna asked where the tables were. Someone asked if they should order pizza. Brian was leaning against the kitchen door frame, arms crossed, looking at the floor the way he always looks at the floor when something is happening that he should have prevented. Then he straightened up, walked to the refrigerator, and opened it one more time, as though something might have materialized in the past 40 minutes. Ranch dressing, pickles, butter. He closed the door and looked at Heather, who was standing in the middle of her own kitchen in her new blouse and her ballet slipper nails and her soft wave salon hair, holding a phone that had made 43 unanswered calls. So Brian said, "Pizza?" Heather turned on him with a look that could strip paint from a wall at 30 feet. "This is not funny, Brian." "You're right," he said, quietly, not joking anymore. "It's not." Guests began leaving at 8:45. Nobody said what they were thinking. They said things like, "We should do this another time and give Kayla our love and I hope everything works out." They carried their wine bottles and their casserole dishes back to their cars and drove away. And with each pair of headlights turning out of the driveway, Heather Calloway's reputation as the woman who threw the best parties in Cedar Park dimmed a little more. By 9:15, the house was empty except for family. Heather, Brian, Kayla, Logan, and Aunt Donna, who had stayed because Aunt Donna is the kind of woman who stays. Kayla was sitting on the couch, still in her white dress, the gold buttons catching the light from the single lamp that was on. She had not cried. She had gone past crying into something quieter and harder. She was staring at the empty patio through the glass door. Logan sat next to her. He had not spoken much all evening. He had watched, he had calculated, and now he said the thing that nobody else had said. "Maybe we should call Morgan, not to yell, just to ask if she's okay." "Heather," from the kitchen, voice sharp and raw, "she is fine. She is being dramatic. She does this because she wants attention." Logan looked at Kayla. Kayla looked at the floor. Then Kayla said, very quietly, without looking up, "She doesn't want attention, Mom. She never wanted attention. She wanted a chair." The room went still. Not the kind of stillness that comes from shock, but the kind that comes from recognition. The kind that happens when someone says the obvious thing that everyone has been stepping around for years, and the sound of it landing is heavier than anyone expected. Heather picked up her phone, called Morgan. "Call 44, voicemail." Brian walked over, took the phone from her hand. Gently, the way you take something from someone who does not realize they are hurting themselves with it. "Stop calling," he said. "She's not going to answer." "How do you now?" Brian looked at his wife. At the empty kitchen. At the apron still folded on the counter where Morgan had left it 2 nights ago, untouched, as though it were a note nobody had read. "Because I wouldn't answer either," he said. Heather sat down. Not in a chair, because there were no chairs. She sat on the kitchen floor, her back against the cabinet, her ballet slipper nails curled against the tile, and she did not call again. Courtney picked me up at Terminal 2 at 10:14. She was driving a blue Subaru with a dent in the rear bumper and a parking ticket tucked under the wiper that she had clearly been ignoring for some time. She honked twice, exactly as promised. I got in, set my suitcase in the back, put on my seatbelt, and then I sat there, in the passenger seat of my best friend's car, in a city I had not visited in 3 years, and I did not say anything for a full minute. Courtney did not fill the silence. She drove. She turned onto Harbor Drive and the ocean appeared on the left, black and flat under a sky full of stars, and the salt air came through the cracked window and it smelled like nothing I recognized, which was exactly what I needed. Something with no memory attached. "You okay?" she said. "I don't know yet," I said. "Ask me tomorrow." "Fair." She took me to her condo. 2nd floor. balcony facing the ocean. There was Thai food on the counter, still warm, and a bottle of wine that was already open, and 2 glasses, and a box of tissues on the coffee table, the good kind, with lotion. You predicted the crying, I said. I predicted everything. I am the Courtney of this operation. I almost laughed. Then I did laugh. Then I cried. Not for long, not dramatically, just enough to let the last of it out, standing in Courtney Pham's kitchen, holding a glass of wine I had not poured for myself, wearing no apron, standing in someone else's house for the first time not as the help. We ate green curry on her couch and did not talk about my mother for the first hour. We talked about her job and her neighbor's dog and a show she wanted me to watch, and whether the Thai place had changed their basil supplier because something tasted different. Normal things, the kind of things people talk about when they are not performing for anyone. The next morning I listened to the voicemails. All 47 of them. I sat on Courtney's balcony with coffee and my phone and I pressed play, and I listened to every single one. My mother's voice moved through a progression I could have predicted with my eyes closed. The first few were sharp. "Morgan, where are you? Call me back immediately." Then confused. "I don't understand what's happening. The tables are gone." Then angry. "How could you do this? This is your sister's night. This is the most selfish thing you have ever done." Then bargaining. "If you come back right now, we can still fix this. I can call people. We can order something." Then quiet. "Morgan, please." Then, on the last message, nothing. Just the sound of breathing, and a long pause, and then the click of a hang-up. I deleted all of them. Then I listened to Brian's. His was the 46th message. It came in at 9:32, after the guests had left, after Heather had stopped calling, after the house was empty and dark. "Morgan, it's Dad." A long pause. The kind of pause that a man makes when he is saying something he has never said before and is not sure the words will come out in the right order. I should have said something a long time ago. I know that doesn't help now. But I wanted you to hear me say it. Another pause. "I'm proud of you, Morgan. I should have said that too." I saved that one. Not because it fixed anything. Not because 12 words erased 15 years of watching a man read a newspaper while his daughter washed dishes alone at midnight. But because it was true. And because he had never said it before, and because sometimes the smallest true thing a person has ever said is worth keeping, even if it arrives too late to change the story. There was one text from Kayla, sent at 11:43 the night before, after everyone had left, after the pretzels and the empty patio and the ballet slipper nails on the kitchen tile. "I'm sorry. I should have seen it." 5 words. I read them sitting on a balcony 3 states away, the Pacific Ocean in front of me, and the morning sun making the water look like something that had been polished. I thought about what to write back. I thought about it for a long time. Then I opened my suitcase. At the bottom, between a sweater and a pair of shoes, was the certificate. 5th grade. Blue border. Gold seal. Outstanding academic performance. Still folded in thirds. Still creased in the same places from a parking lot 24 years ago. I carried it to Courtney's bookshelf. Set it upright between a pottery vase and a framed photo of Courtney at her college graduation. It fit. It looked like it had always been there. Like it had been waiting for a shelf that was not a shoebox. Courtney came out of the bedroom, hair wet, coffee in hand. Saw the certificate, read it, looked at me. 5th grade, she said. 5th grade. She nodded once. Did not ask for the story. She already knew the story. She had known it for 8 years. Since a dark highway and a dish towel and 5 words in a car. I went to the balcony, sat down, barefoot on the concrete. No notebook, no checklist, no label maker, no list of 37 tasks in someone else's beautiful handwriting. The ocean made a sound like breathing, steady and patient, the kind of sound that does not ask anything of you. I picked up my phone and typed a reply to Kayla. Not "I forgive you." Not "leave me alone." Not "we need to talk about mom" or "you owe me an apology" or any of the things I might have said if I were still the woman who planned everything and felt nothing until the plane reached cruising altitude. 3 words. "When I'm ready." I put the phone down, looked at the water, did not plan what happened next. For the first time in 15 years, I had nothing to set up, nothing to clean, nothing to cook for 30 people who would not save me a seat. I had a borrowed balcony and a glass of wine someone else had poured, and a certificate on a shelf and a morning that belonged entirely to me. I sat there for a long time. It was not hard. Morgan did not win because she canceled a party. She won years before that, the moment she opened a folder on her laptop and named it Exit, the moment she stopped asking for a chair and started building her own table. Here is what this story is really about. You cannot earn a seat by being useful. If someone only values you for what you produce, they do not value you. They value the production. And the day you stop producing, you will find out exactly where you stand, which is nowhere, because there was never a place set for you to begin with. If you have spent years cooking meals you were not invited to eat, organizing events you were not thanked for, holding families together while being told it is not that hard, then you already know what Morgan knew. You know it in your hands and in your back and in the quiet drive home, after everyone else has gone to bed. The question is not whether you deserve better. You know you do. The question is this: what would you name the folder? And when are you going to open it? If this story reminded you of someone, share it with them. Sometimes the permission to leave comes from hearing that somebody else already did.
Thank you for being part of Lyra Echo Stories. If this story stayed with you, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share, because every echo never truly fades.